All right, 7.5, parts of similar triangle notes. Okay, so what we have here is we have a triangle that has parallel lines in it. Well, one of the ways to do this, or that I teach it, is part to part has to equal part to part. Okay, what does that mean? So I'm going to call this X here. So this is a part, and this is a part. This is a part, and that's a part. So I just set up my proportion. So if I do, say, X over 25, then I have to do 3 over 15. So X over 25 has to equal 3 over 15. So X goes with the 25, 3 over the 15. Now, the thing you have to do is you've got to remember X is with this little segment, 3 is with that little segment, which are connected. Those have to go together on the top. That's real important. So you just do your cross multiply and you get 15x equals 3 times 25, 75. If you divide by 15, then you get x is 5. Okay. Then look at your answer. That makes sense. Okay. 5. I know it's got to be a small number, something close to 3, but I know it's got to be bigger than 3. Why? Because this 25 is bigger than that 15. So that makes sense. All right, let's do this one. Okay, so again, same sort of thing. Part to part has to equal part to part. So again, I'm going to call this X right here. Okay, now X goes with the 2, and the 2 goes with the 4. Now again, X was on the top. The side that it's with is that 2, so it's got to go on the bottom, or on the top in the second one. Sorry about that. So we cross multiply and we get 4x equals 2 times 2 is 4, so then that's x is 1. Now again, check and make sure that answer makes sense, and it does. Okay, this is 2, it's with a 4. This is a 1, it's with a 2. So this number right here has to be smaller than that one, since it's with a smaller number 2. Hope that's kind of making sense. Hopefully as I do it in class it'll make sense to you also. Alright, so again we got to do this part to part. The problem is I'm missing a part right here. But I know this whole thing's 3, so that means this right here has to be 2. Okay, so I'm going to call this again X. Oops, sorry about that. So I'm going to say X over 1 has to equal 4 over 2. Okay, the X and 4 have to go together, and then the 1 and 2 have to go together right here. Okay, so cross multiply, so we get 2x equals 4, so that means x is 2. Check your answer, see if that makes sense. A 1 with a 2 with a 4, that makes sense. Okay, here's another one. We don't have the other part, but I know this is 5. Why? Because 5 plus 2 gives me that 7. So now I can do my part thing. So I'm going to say 5 over 2 has to equal 10 over x. Cross multiply, 5x equals 20. Divide by 5, and we get x is 4. Check your answer. And that makes sense here because that number should be bigger than this one because it's with a 10, and it is. Okay, let's keep going. Alright, a little tougher here. Okay, because now I'm missing this right here, this part. Okay, so I got to figure out some way to get that part. Now, how do I get it? Well, if I look back up here at these previous ones, I got that part by taking the whole minus the part. 3 minus 1 gave me 2. Same way over here. The whole, which was 7, minus the 2, the part, gave me that other part, 5. So I'm going to do the same thing here. What's the whole? The 2x minus 7 minus the part, 6. The difference is this is going to be an expression. So I have 2x minus 7 minus 6. If I simplify that, it gives me 2x minus 13. That's what this part is. This is 2x minus 13 for that little part. So now I can do away with this. I don't use that anymore. So now I do my part over part has to equal part over part. Now the difference here in solving is, right here I'm going to have to do distributive property. We've done this quite a bit now, so it's going to be 20x minus 130 equals, 6 times 5 is 30. If I add 130 to both sides, it's 20x is 160, divide by 20, and I get x is equal to 8. Now let's make sure that makes sense. Let's plug 8 in just for a second. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 13 is 3. So that would have come out to be 3. Well, that makes sense because 5 and 3, 10 and 6. All right, let's keep going here. Let's go over to number 6. Okay, here we do have the parts. So again, I'm going to do part over part equals part over part. Now again, the 4 and the 3 go together here. The 2x plus 2 and the 9 have to go together in our proportion. So cross multiply, do distributive. So we get 6x plus 6 equals 36. Subtract 6. 6x equals 30. Oops. Divide by 6. And we get x is 5. Again, good idea to plug it in. So if I plug 5 in, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, 4 with 12, 3 with 9. That makes sense. 4 is a bigger number, so it should have a bigger number with it. So hopefully you're following this pretty well. Okay, now here is another one that you need to remember. I'm going to write a different rule here. Leg is part to whole. Leg is part to whole. What's that mean? Okay, this is a leg of the right triangle. This is the part, very similar to what we've done at the top, and then this is the whole, same thing we referred to at the top. So when I say leg is part to whole, leg has to go down twice in your proportion. Okay, so if I put leg here, then leg has to go here in the proportion. They have to be in opposite positions. Part and whole. That's what our proportion should look like. I just always remember this sentence, leg is part to whole. So in this particular problem, what was our leg? Our leg is x. So x goes down twice in opposite positions. Our part was 36. Our whole was 100. And I cross multiply. Now, one thing to note here, just because x here was our leg, x does not always go down twice. It depends on what it represents. If x had been our part, then it would have only gone down one time. So just be mindful of that. So anyway, we cross multiply, so we get x squared equals 3600. Now, how do I get rid of the square? Remember, we've done this before. Take the square root. So if you take the square root, excuse me, if you take the square root right here, then you're going to get x is 60. Okay, now let's see if that makes sense. 60. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell on this one if your answer makes sense. That's why you got to make sure you set up your proportions correctly. Okay, what about this one? All right, x here is referred to as the altitude. Now, altitude is just the height of something. We're going to be using this later on too, but we've talked about altitude before a little bit. It's how tall or how high something is. So that's altitude. So the sentence I use here is altitude is part to part. Okay. So just like in the other sentence, whatever I write here goes down twice. So altitude goes down twice in opposite positions. The parts go in the other positions. Okay, so what are our parts? The parts here are the 64 and the 36. So I go x over, doesn't matter which part you put, I'll put 64 equals 36 over x. Cross multiply again, get x squared equals, well, I have to use a calculator here, I don't know that one. 64 times 36 is 2,304. Okay, and we have to take the square root of 2,304. And if we do that, we get x is 48. Okay. So remember those two sentences. Those are special cases here. Leg is part to whole. Altitude is part to part. What we're looking for in those particular problems is when you have a right triangle and then you have an altitude from the right angle. That's the kind of picture we're looking for when we need to apply these two sentences.